Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to address how to deal with people who feel entitled. Now, that's not a problem in America, right? Actually, in this episode, I'm going to empower you to empower those you care about instead of enabling them. And what happens is we really want to help our children, grandchildren, and employees, but all too often they get this entitlement mindset. And so I'm going to share with you how to require some skin in the game, to teach responsibility and accountability. So as we go through this, you will get some insights into how to abolish entitlement mentality and take your family, your employees, your company from me to we. Together, we're better. I'm Doug Andrew, and I know what I'm talking about because I have witnessed this thousands of times with very successful people who would come to me and I would ask them, wow, how did you build this empire, this incredible business? And they would say, oh, wow, my parents grew up during the Great Depression. They raised me and taught me the value of work. I have worked so hard. Man, my kids will never have to work as hard as I did. And then they would come back 20 or 30 years later after their adult children had moved back home several times asking for handouts. And I would say, how's it going? And they'd go, Doug, I don't know what's wrong with my kids. They don't even know how to work. And I would say, maybe you stole that from them. Maybe in your attempt to help them, you were hindering them, always giving them handouts. Maybe you should have been giving them a hand up. So we need to correct that and maybe abolish that entitlement mindset, which is not going to be easy. Now, I want to share with you the story of two families that will help you understand what happens when we start thriving and experiencing success. Cornelius Vanderbilt, known as Commodore, was like the Bill Gates of his time, richest man on earth when he died in 1877. And he amassed a $105 million fortune. Now, that was in steamships, railroads, transportation industry, but he wasn't very philanthropic. He only left behind less than 1% of that to charity, Central University, which became Vanderbilt University. Do you know it took 96 years until 1972 before 120 of his descendants gathered together at Vanderbilt University for their first family reunion? And there was not a millionaire left in the bunch. It was all gone. Now, we have a saying, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. In other words, he left all this money behind and they sat back, and the second generation was okay, but the third generation, they were just like, oh, when do I get my share? In fact, he had a grandson that said, it has left me with nothing to hope for, nothing definite to seek or strive for. Inherited wealth has been a real handicap to happiness. Whoa. Now, I contrast that with Mayor Amschel Rothschild, the Rothschilds family. Now, I don't endorse these families by any means, but they illustrate the point I'm making right now, because this isn't just the Vanderbilt family that dumped it in their laps. It's in Asia, rice paddy to rice paddy in 3 generations. Europe, it's clogs to clogs, 3 generations. If you just have all this money and you dump it in their laps, you're just dumping fish in their lap. See, I'd rather leave behind how to fish instead of dumping a bunch of fish in their lap, and then you'll empower them. Otherwise, you're enabling them, and they sit around with their hand out. See, when you leave it in that fashion, it discourages saving money. It encourages extraordinary consumption, and it takes families from we to me. When do I get my share? They feel entitled. Well, the Rothschilds, see, Mayor Amschel Rothschild died in 1812, and he built a banking dynasty in Europe. The Rothschilds had several children, among them 5 living sons. And they assigned each of these sons to European capitals, and they would communicate back and forth with homing pigeons, when to buy and when to sell. The point is, when he died, he did not leave behind an entitlement or any inheritance. He left behind a system, a repository. He captured the wisdom, the knowledge, the attitudes, the skills, and the habits, how to fish instead of dumping a bunch of fish in their lap. So in his system, I call it a family bank. Now, this isn't a chartered bank like down the street. This is a conceptual bank. And so, for example, there were 3 basic rules. They loaned their heirs money, but the loans had to be repaid. So if you needed help with a college education, you had to get good grades, apply. You got a loan, and when you graduated and started making money, you paid the loan back with a nominal interest rate, just like any student loan, so that your children and grandchildren would have the same resource, family bank, to draw from. You know, when I went to college, I came from a family of 6, as did my wife, and our parents couldn't afford to pay for our college. We didn't expect them to. I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken 30 hours a week. My wife worked at a bookstore. We got scholarships, grants, and loans. We had skin in the game, and frankly, we had better study habits than a lot of our friends did who were just getting handouts. They were goofing off. And so when Sherry, my wife, and I got married and had our 6 children, we didn't want any of them to think we would just pay for their college. We didn't. We required skin in the game. They had to come up with as much as they could. They had to work, and if they wanted a semester abroad in Israel or Egypt or something, or New Zealand, it wasn't just some vacation. They had to save, sell their motorcycle or a car, come up with as much as they could, and if they were short, they never came with their handout. Hey, will you pay for? Can I have? No, they said, hey, I'm short $1,500. Could you loan me out of the family bank $1,500? And here's how I'm going to pay it back. And if I can't pay it back out of earning money, I'll paint, I'll shampoo carpets, I'll weed, I'll mow lawns. They took ownership in their education, every one of them. And they were way ahead of a lot of their peers who were just given a handout. So I've used a term, you must have skin in the game. Empower instead of enable. Teach responsibility and accountability. Otherwise, they just feel like, hey, you owe it to me. You know, this is where the Rothschild's family then allowed those to share with other family members from the good and the bad experiences. And they also met together once a year to reaffirm their virtues and intentions, or they were sort of out of the loop. So it was a system based upon being responsible and accountable, stepping up to the plate. And then the family bank could loan money or match it, and that empowered them. And guess what happened to the Rothschilds' wealth? It compounded, it grew, it flourished. The Vanderbilt fortune dissipated and disappeared. So, as a financial strategist, I've reviewed thousands of trusts, and I've actually educated many tax and estate planning attorneys. To be honest with you, the vast amount of trusts are set up equal distribution, because that's the easiest way. When a couple would come in, an attorney would say, after he found out their net worth, so how many kids have you got? Because what is he going to start doing? Dividing it up. That's the number 1 rule if you want to destroy. Divide and conquer. No, united we stand. But see, it was so easy to just take their kids' names, plug it into the boilerplate trust document, and then when they passed away, they just take those assets in there and divide it up equally and dump it in their laps, and it ruins half of the kids in this country. Oh, when do I get my share? So how do we solve this? Instead of equal distribution, because there's nothing more unequal than the equal distribution to unequals. Did you hear that? When I say that, people do a double take. What are you talking about? There's nothing more unequal than the equal distribution to unequals. Our Creator, I do not believe, gives equal distribution of blessings, let's say of health, to all of us, regardless of how some of us may choose to abuse our bodies, okay? I don't think our Creator just goes, oh, you've been really horrible with all that stuff you've been taking and addictions and you don't exercise, but I'm going to give you the same equal distribution of health as I do these people who are exercising and eating right. No, our Creator gives us equal opportunities, not equal distribution. So when I share that, many people go through and learn through my books and various educational episodes how to rethink their thinking to equal opportunities for their kids and their grandkids and their employees, but not equal distribution. I have put in my time for 15 years. I deserve a raise. What about the results? You're compensated based on results, not just because you put in time. And so when we begin to foster responsibility and accountability and provide equal opportunities, but not equal distribution, guess what happens? People step up to the plate. They begin to put skin in the game. They begin to contribute more, and then they have the same opportunities and they receive more. And it requires them putting a little bit of a skin in the game themselves, and then maybe you can match dollar for every amount they save towards their college education or the purchase of a first home, instead of just thinking, Mom, Dad, hello, will you pay for it? Can I have? And they're always giving their hands out. No, you want to give them a hand up, never a handout. So I realize this is a deep subject, but hopefully it is resonating with you. And if you would like to be empowered on how to abolish entitlement mentality with those that you care about, how to lead your family or your employees from me to we, together we're better, I would love to gift you absolutely free a copy of this best-selling book I wrote called Entitlement Abolition. It has 12 chapters. The first 4 chapters talk about the problem of how we get trapped and there's all this abundance and we just can't, because we're just thinking about ourselves and this entitlement mindset. The last 8 chapters of this book talks about how to free yourself from the entitlement trap. And you'll learn about Grandpa's Camp and how to have family vacations with a purpose and set up equal opportunity rules of governance, equal opportunity trust. And so click on the link below and you can receive a free copy of this. Just pay a nominal shipping or handling fee. And as you dive into this, my hope for you is that you can abolish entitlement mentality with those that you care about, and watch what happens as they begin to take responsibility and accountability by putting skin in the game.